It's 5:30, shall we? Okay, meeting is called to order. We'll need a roll call to determine if we've got a quorum.
Miller.
Here.
Tepley.
Here.
Fagerlin. Coppernoll.
Here.
Wilson.
Here.
Jelinek.
Here.
Cairns. You have a quorum?
Thank you. Was this meeting properly noticed?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, minutes we do not have tonight. That will be done at the next meeting. That's correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's not going to happen. Next on the agenda, discussion and possible action items. First one on the list is the traffic study update.
All right, everybody, so we're going to try to fly tonight. So we do have a slide here that will kind of support our conversation. Regarding the traffic study, we had solicited quotes from a number of different engineering firms that could provide a traffic study for Highway 14 between Bowman and Highway 58. With all of the updates that we're doing, you know, the potential development of the hospital and other interests that's probably going to follow, it's important that we understand traffic patterns and that our future planning takes into consideration what's likely to happen over the next few years. So the City Finance and Council approved MSA, an agreement with MSA engineers at $30,300 for the study that will be looking at the section of Highway 14 I mentioned. That says 15, but it's 58. So we had an initial kickoff meeting on Friday. Last Friday, I was in that meeting with three of their engineers. We already have traffic counts done for the area. Traffic counts were taken, hopefully you can kind of see this, but you see the three red dots there? So that's at Jelland, it's at Pleasant Valley, it's at O, and then it's down at Starlight Drive, right across from the strip mall. So they took traffic counts during the day, I think on Thursday, for kind of weekday traffic, and then they took counts on Saturday. So that part of the study is already been completed. Study overall should be complete in December, presentation at council on December 5th. It's likely that will not be in a final format, but it will allow decision makers to see it. We'll bring it to Planning Commission on December 27th, so you'll be seeing a more final version of it. We really don't have a lot of things that we can vary the study by. If there's specific questions, they'll be here, they'll be able to answer questions and things like that. So those are the tentative dates. If something changes or shifts, we can let you know. So that is that agenda item. If there's any questions.
When did they do the traffic counts?
Huh?
When they took them, the traffic counts?
They took them on last Thursday
Just did 'em. Okay,
and
that's
Saturday,
right. Okay.
which was kind of strange because I met with them on Wednesday and they said, we'll let you know in advance. So I wanted to inform you because you sometimes get calls and
Often.
and I also wanted to let Billy Jones know that it was going on. And Friday, partway through the day, say, oh, we actually had the team out there yesterday. I'm like, all right, well, it happened. So I'm glad it happened, and I'm glad nobody got any calls.
Right, nobody said anything to me, but I'm glad they did it too. Any comments or questions regarding the traffic study?
One more time, Jason, the 27th, it'll be in front of planning as up, oh, it's up there, sorry.
Yep. No, I just threw it back up. So
Okay.
27th is what is the tentative timeline. So that was part of my kickoff meeting with them. We were reviewing dates and at the different points that they would be trying to provide information and holding internal meetings. So
All right.
we expect what that's, we've talked about it a little bit here already, but we're looking at driveway accesses along Highway 14. We're looking at frontage road recommendations. We're looking at controlled intersections, whether it's by signage or electronically controlled. And so those are the types of things that they're looking at down through there.
So would it be a frontage road also for the hospital to enter and
Frontage,
have-
yeah, the frontage road you would turn right at Jelland into the hospital property. And then you'd come in about 250 feet and you'd either turn right or left if you wanted to go someplace other than the hospital as a destination. So.
Before we move on to the next one, I just today the DOT reached out and they're trying to plan public information meeting for Highway 14. And so they're looking at either October 17th or 18th, but there were potential conflict with the 17th, so I recommended that they hold it on the 18th. It'll either be at 5:30 or at 6:30, likely right in here.
Okay.
Yes. And so they'll be talking about, the same area, more or less, of what we're talking about, and the change in plans, so where they're going to actually be replacing Highway 14 rather than just.
Until 26?
So that's, the construction is scheduled for 2026, but I believe as long as the environmental studies that they had to do to adjust for this redo, if they're able to get those done in time, that this would be considered an advanceable project. So there's a chance, if everything lines up, that it could start earlier, but otherwise it's 2026.
So they haven't committed to a date yet, right? Like which dates, or have they?
So it'll likely be the 18th.
The 18th is what I'm doing the morning show Monday.
Okay,
I'd
as
like
soon
to-
as I know, I'll let you know.
Because I'd like to, people will want to know that.
Yep.
Okay.
And there will be a, like the government officials type of meeting, which will be virtually sometime the week prior.
Okay, anything else on the traffic study update? Okay, that concludes that agenda item. Item 2, wayfinding signage update.
So, Karen has been working diligently on that project, and she was able to submit sign design and a location map that is required by the DOT to Eric Glindling of the DOT on 9/13/2023. I reached out to him today actually to try to find out where it was in the review process, and he had not completed the review yet. He did indicate that they would have, he was attempting to have the review done by Friday on 9/6/2023, and he invited me to call him again if I hadn't heard from him by that point. So I have a task in my calendar to call him again at that time. What we're expecting is that review basically is an approval of the sign design that we have, the location that we have, what text we have on the sign. There may be a feedback loop that we have to go through once we actually get it into a sign company hands, where we would have a cut sheet perhaps looked at by Eric again. But if we can get this back, we can finally get out for requests for proposals.
What is it? 9/6 was not, it was submitted the 13th, you followed up today, but when?
Sorry,
this
10/6, 10/6. Let me change that. There, it says 10/6. There.
I thought, wow, you're like magic, make you go backwards. I like that. All right. Thank you for the follow-up. I meant to get with you and see if we should both follow up, but got it done. Cool.
So that's it on that topic unless somebody else has questions.
Anything further on wayfinding signage?
Oh, just it's not really a wayfinding, but it's the banners. Any more placement on 14?
I have not talked to the DOT about the banners at all.
All right. I do have an application for that, and
Okay.
there's one line in there that you probably will need to get clarification on, because it's not clear from the DOT mentioned that.
And I think we would run that project separate of this one anyway.
Okay. Nice.
Wayfinding, I would think, the banners, from your and I's conversation, I wouldn't think would be near as complicated as wayfinding, so.
But DOT still has an application, so you know how
Yeah.
that goes. All right, thank you.
Anything further on wayfinding signage? Lisa, anything else on wayfinding signage? Okay, good. Item 3, sale of 460 West First Street.
All right, so 460 West First is officially closed. The sale was completed on Thursday, September 21st at 9 a.m. in the morning. We received the check for the amount due, as well as the performance guarantee deposit. I think the check totaled someplace in the area of $13,600. by the time we had title insurance and all the different closing fees that are associated. I reached out to them last week, I believe it was, and they are still finalizing their estimates on a couple of things and their plans, but again, the performance guarantee is in our possession. They fully intend on starting to construct this fall, from my understanding, so we're just waiting for them to finalize their plans, come in for a building permit, zoning permit, and off they will go, so.
Not long after you did that, Mr. Scotty Wallace was at my day job with a huge grin on his face. And he's very excited and grateful, and did tell me that they intend to dig before the frost. So assuming they can get everything lined up, that's the plan, and he's over the moon. He doesn't want to do this once, he wants to do it several times.
Yeah.
So Scotty Wallace purchased it?
He and, what's he got, 2 partners in it?
ENS Development LLC, which is a partnership between Scotty Wallace, Nate Olson, and Elijah Adams, all 3 of which own construction-related companies.
What was the sale price?
Sale price was $5,000, and by the time we got through closing fees and all of the different fees associated, it was $3,800, I think, or something like that.
It's not 460 was first, but related, we still have the lot at Union and Jefferson, and I know that I've had a couple of people just kind of very casually, what's the city, the same way this one went, what's the city asking for it? And I've told every one of them, make an offer, come and see you, call you.
I've had a couple of conversations, played phone tag with a couple of people, but there was a gentleman that was actually was reviewing a plan for a duplex. I just haven't had follow through, and so we're still it's still for sale, so.
Yeah. Okay, anything else on 460 West First? Okay, item 4, submission of letter to Campus Reconfiguration Committee.
Yeah, so per the last Planning Commission meeting, we did draft a letter that was reviewed by several people. We emailed that on 9/13, went to Candace Pesch, the county administrator, Dave Turk, who is the committee chair, Steve Williamson, who I believe is the vice chair of that committee, Marty Brewer as the county board chair, if I didn't say that already. And so sent on 9/13, we have not received any response. They did hold a meeting on 9/13/2023. Their meeting minutes are in your packet. So I printed a copy of those meeting minutes. I know that there is a lot of effort going into that on the county's behalf, and they're talking even further about the composition of the committee, it looks like, and different decisions they have to make for winterization. That's according to the meeting minutes. So I expect that I will be reaching out to them again, just checking in, saying, is there anything that we can do to be of assistance? I've had actually recent conversations, Ashley and I both were in a conversation just recently with Steve Board talking about traffic patterns out there below Panorama and right there at the driveway to high school on Hive Drive. And so it's interesting how the things start to pile up, right? It's like, okay, we've talked about everything from bridges to housing out there to now we're looking at the fact that there could be, additional housing at Panorama. So there's a number of things that are compounding the necessity of planning out there in that area. So we want to make sure that we connect with the county and let them know that there's a lot of things moving and we need to be in deep collaboration on that.
Yeah, there are, and you can see on the minutes, for example, how complex the situation is out there. Right here, Attorney Windle confirmed that Richland County has no control over the facilities and that uses of it are still determined by the UW system at the moment. So there's a lot of players still. I know they just walked through each building and they're trying to get a handle on what repairs are needed when in each place, and it's a major undertaking. I talked to Marty Brewer Friday night, and he kind of just overviewed like you just did. They're real early in it, and like it says in here, at this point, all options on the table. I think that's as far as they are. Anything else, Jason?
I don't think so on this one, Ashley. Anything? Yeah, I think we're good. We will stay in contact and keep working and collaborating to the best of our ability, so.
Just one comment, I heard on the news last week that Mark Line and Tony Kurtz have put together a bill for that 2 million, or, I mean, it's
Yep.
it's larger than that, but
Mhm.
they're definitely saying 2 million to the campus.
Yeah, they tried to do that once before and it didn't make it through the budget,
Right.
so this is a separate, but it's an attempt again,
Yeah.
for sure.
And like I said, this is for all three, so
Yeah.
it's a larger amount, I don't remember it was,
Well, initially,
Six.
what didn't make it was 6 million, 2 million for Richland County, and I don't know, I haven't asked, so I think that's where they are again.
yeah, it sounds like it, but anyway, it's resurfaced still.
Yeah.
Only point I was gonna make.
Yeah, I've had a couple people that heard them talking on the radio about that. They called me and asked me what the city was going to do with that money, so I'm going to reiterate again. The campus is owned by the county. It's still controlled by UW Platteville. The city won't do anything with that money if it happens. So, any other comments or questions on the submission of the letter to the Campus Reconfiguration Committee? Okay, item 5, future rezone of Jefferson Elementary School. I'll start that really quickly. They have accepted a bid to sell Jefferson Elementary. They did that in open session, so it is public knowledge that there is an accepted bid and whose bid it was. It was Carrie Norman. For anyone who doesn't know it, it was voted publicly, so that's out there. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, so as the mayor mentioned, offer to purchase was accepted, but it is contingent on the rezoning. It's currently zoned in R34, 3-4, which means you can have up to 4 dwelling units there, and it was basically an allowed use in a 3-4 to have school, which is not uncommon in zoning ordinances to have schools allowed in residential areas. The best fit for the property is probably a commercial general zoning. And talking with Mr. Norman, he's got several ideas of things that the building could be used for, and it would not be all residential. And so we would have to be looking at an amendment to the comprehensive plan, because it is currently in the comprehensive plan as an R45.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, R34 with the comp plan showing the same thing. So, or future land use map showing the same R34 zoning. So if we do something different, we have to amend the comp plan. I talked to Southwest Regional Planning Commission about that. Troy Maggie thought that it was probably a fairly simple process that we could go through. It takes a little bit of time to properly notice it, but it does not have to be a complicated process when we would be changing just a single small parcel of property. The other thing is it would have to go through then an internal rezoning process. I know that there's a potential question of spot zoning. This would be really, which a lot of people say spot zoning is illegal. That's not true. You can rezone things as long as the uses are similar, right? So as long as you're not putting a heavy industrial building in a residential space and the uses kind of complement each other, you can rezone. Some people who don't want rezoning to happen will say it's illegal to do that. Rezoning to similar zoning districts in areas is allowed. It's when, again, the uses are substantially different and it causes a major depreciation or depreciation of one person's property over another. So if it goes commercial general, we'd probably be looking at needing some off-street parking. There is going to be a change in use in the building from most likely assembly, like school assembly, to the types of uses that we're talking about. I talked to Tracy Johnson today as well. He said it is definitely going to require state approved plans and a state review process that They will determine whether or not it needs to be sprinklered or firewalls have to be added, and they determine that based on the use that gets proposed. So at this point, we don't have any specific areas of the building, proposals for uses of areas of the building.
So for anyone who may see video of this, who's not familiar with the name, Mr. Tracy Johnson is the building inspector. Jason. And-
Yes.
Yeah, and I know I was present for a meeting. Mr. Norman stopped in on Monday. I was there, the administrator was there, Jason was there talking about some of his ideas, and the advice we gave him right away was to contact the building inspector for one thing. Because as Jason said, depending on what businesses, for instance, he may want to rent to in there. Ashley actually made him smile, trying to explain how zoning works, and said, for instance, you couldn't put a gentleman's club next to a daycare. Trying to get the conversation rolling as to what we talk about, what spot zoning is. How that works. To make sure that he knows the path to be on, so he doesn't get himself too far into one thing or another before we're here. Anything else, Jason?
I don't think so on that. I mean, it's just when you're coming out of a use like that into a different use, and it's just, there is a fair amount of planning and work to go through. So we have the zoning team preparing an official report. Actually, you have a copy of that. So it basically is reviewing the things that I've cited to you. They've looked at a couple of different things, and we'll just need to be in touch with Mr. Norman and do the best we can to see if we can get a zoning, a type of zoning established that he thinks would be feasible for him to accomplish what he would like to accomplish, and also complement the neighborhood and the city.
Any questions or comments on the future rezone of Jefferson Elementary? Yep, go ahead.
Comment. So I understand spot zoning, the concept behind it isn't always illegal. But by passing that part of the comprehensive plan for zoning, wasn't it our intent to kind of keep things zoned in those areas and not do this? Not have, what do you call it? Where you have to amend it. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Amendment to it?
I think that's a great question, and that is absolutely under the purview of this
Right.
planning commission. So you are correct. If we want to do well-organized and well-thought-out planning of the city, planning and development, then you are asking these questions all the time, saying, do we really want that next to this, and what uses are appropriate to be next to one another. So that's an excellent question. Just for an example, the Lincoln School, we knew that this was also going to occur. When we did the comprehensive planning on that, which you all reviewed, that was set to a mixed use, future land use. And that was to allow for maybe the reuse of the structure that's there. I think that it's quite possible that if we were to say that it's only residential, it can only be residential, the conversion for pure residential could be cost prohibitive and leave us with a structure that sits there empty, having basically very little value. So there's a lot of things in play, like also the school, when they sell a property like that, specifically says it can't be used again for a school,
Correct.
right? So,
Like an non-compete or something?
yeah.
More or less, without calling
Yeah.
it that. Yeah.
So there are just a lot of factors in place, and so I think that's a great question, Karen, and if we want to bring it back around and talk more at the next meeting, or you want to continue to talk about it here, but we definitely, in trying to move forward, are going to have to make some decisions as to whether or not you want to change the zoning.
And I mean, at this point, Jason, based on the conversation the three of us had with Kerry, he doesn't even know exactly what zoning he'd be requesting. He's looking at his options, so we're not even that far yet to would we have to do a great big change, or what's he exactly want, because he doesn't know. he's got a deadline from the school district to get it rezoned. It's in a contingency in his offer to get it rezoned, but to what? That's why he came down. And that's why we gave him advice to talk to the building inspector and so forth, to start to get an idea what he wants to do, because this body will have to listen to that and decide if we want to recommend it or not. And that's as far as we are. It's just all happened on Friday.
Okay, so in the offer, it stated that can't be a school and rezoning will more than likely be necessary? Is
No,
that how you want it?
no, it's gotta be rezoned, because everyone involved, it was none of us, believes they'll need to rezone from what it is. So he won't want it if he can't rezone it to something else. Question is to what else? Is he gonna put businesses in there? Is he gonna put apartments in there? He doesn't know yet to tell us what he wants. So we can't make any decisions yet. It's too early until he gets a plan and brings it to us.
Okay, so the offer is contingent upon this rezoning?
It is.
So
On
it's not? It's
on
not-
rezoning, because
it's not-
there is a mixed use intent. I believe Mr. Norman has a mixed use intent that the current zoning at an R34 doesn't allow. R34 does not allow for any commercial little office spaces or anything like that. Probably isn't going to allow for the gymnasium that's there to be used for any, for anything. So if you are going to use that structure in its current condition at all, which makes it more feasible for it to be, come under the tax roll and be used, then it's going to require rezoning, in my opinion.
And we just need more information. This is just to let all you guys know that this has started, and that he's trying to do it.
Okay.
We just don't know what he wants yet. Any other questions or comments on it?
What's the timeline he has?
End of the year. Calendar year.
How long does this rezone process take and hearings and?
30 to 45 days, it just depends on when the application comes in and how the meetings are scheduled following that. Because it will have to be a Class 2 notice, so it'll have to have 2 insertions in the paper, with the second not being less than, I think, 10 days prior to the meeting in which the public hearing will occur.
Letters go out to the neighborhood?
I believe adjacent property owners get a
Yeah.
letter on a rezone.
Is there enough time between now and the end of the year with Thanksgiving and Christmas and all holidays to get that accomplished?
Technically, yes, but it'll largely depend on him.
He's got a lot of work to do. I mean, doesn't really have a plan yet. He's got a building.
Right.
That's the way I would describe it. So, yeah, if he's gonna have to get, and we told him all of this, that we'd have to do multiple runs in the Observer, we'd have to do the public hearing, send the letters, so that there would be, we told him to expect 2 months of that. So that gives him a month to be here.
Not even, because you take out a week for
Yeah.
a holiday and a week for another holiday, pretty much, right?
Well, right, I mean, we have hard deadlines based on when council meets, so the public hearing will have to be at council, and so we need to, if he were to want council to hear this, it would have to be the October Plan Commission meeting, where
Yeah.
you guys would review it, and then the first Tuesday in November, that would be the soonest, we could possibly hold a public hearing. So that's not a lot, but if we don't make that timeline, we can still do planning meeting at the end of November, and then the council meeting the first Tuesday of December.
Mhm. And yeah, I get your point, Ryan. There's a lot to do in a short time, and we tried to make that point to Mr. Norman. I think he understands that. I don't, until we hear more from him and from the building inspector, I don't know what conversation they're in yet. Anything further on that item? Okay. Next is item 6, TID planning.
So I think we reviewed that at our last meeting a little bit, and we've had several conversations since our last meeting with different firms, including a couple engineering firms and Southwest Regional Planning Commission. And last week we got some good news, and Southwest Regional Planning, in your packet you'll see an offer or a proposal dated September 25th. So Southwest Regional Planning has some grant dollars left in their budget where they would be able to assist us in the planning and establishment of 2 TIF districts using those grant dollars. Now, there is a chance that we would possibly have to pay for some meets and bounds surveying type of work that has to be submitted with the application, but there's also a chance, Southwest Regional indicates in the letter, that there's potential that could be covered as well. So anyway, we're taking a process that probably generally could, cost in between $10,000 and $20,000, and they're giving that to us on a grant basis. So I think the last time we looked at a couple of different boundaries. I've got a new map here that kind of shows things that we recently have discussed. This would be the hospital property, and the property that's immediately behind Walmart, potentially property across the road, potentially some property to the north going down to the current Richland Square. Now, these boundaries, TIF districts require that it's inside the city limits. I have this drawn, not all these spaces are inside the city limits, but when you're planning a TIF, you can also plan for future expansion. So I'm just kind of outlining the areas which are likely to be these spaces that are developable as we continue to move in the direction of eastward on Highway 14 and near the hospital. So that's one of them. The second one that we've been talking about a little bit is a district that potentially could include Storyfield, the current hospital site and parking lots, and then you can oftentimes get quite creative with TIF districts. We could potentially go down the street and pick up the Orange Street, some of the Orange Street corridor that we had talked about in the previous meeting. I have these split up, but in conversations, we think it may be possible to make 2 TIF districts and include more territory in the spaces where there's likely to be development. So this one, of course, could support us in the development of Story, could assist in the redevelopment of the hospital site if that's the direction they choose to go, and also would allow us to pick up some space on Orange Street that we've been having recent conversations on with the Environmental Protection Agency, been studying that area, and it also correlates with the hotel study that was recently commissioned or approved by the council. So that's the reason that these 2, if we were to get 2 at no cost, would be these types of areas. So I think that is what I have to say about that. We have not accepted this proposal. This could be an action item where you would give a signal to Southwest Regional that you'd be glad to receive the donations. And we could proceed to try to identify, the boundaries. I think that we would probably set up a meeting that would review kind of some tentative boundaries again, and we would have better mapping, and Southwest Regional Planning would be willing to talk through the thought processes that they go through as regional planners and offering recommendations to the city. So
I think you are recommending that they do make a motion.
absolutely.
To accept the proposal.
Yep.
I have a question.
Yes.
On the Orange Street, including the Orange Street property, how would that reflect with the RDA, the redevelopment authority?
That's a great question, Ray. I haven't actually.
So Jason, in the past, they coexisted. There was a TIF for the Orange Street corridor development. At the same time, there was an RDA.
Yeah, I mean, you can have a TIF over an RDA.
Absolutely.
It could be of their benefit.
Well, that's what they did, and it retired while I've been mayor. That one ended, closed. That is why, that's how we got a lot of the money we have for affordable housing. That one ran an extra year.
Wow,
That was
yeah.
the TIF. So I don't know, it was done in 98 or something, so I wasn't around. But they did them both at the time. I think it all happened when Ed Lee was mayor and Jude Elliott was still down here.
The other thing, Ray, that we've talked about on a couple of different occasions, we've talked about it for sure with the redevelopment authority. I don't remember if we discussed it here, but the way the structure was established for the redevelopment authority, it either has to be greatly amended or we will move away from the redevelopment authority towards the community development authority. So that is an added complication on this zone here potentially, although as the mayor mentions, there were TIF districts before. I think that we can reform the RDA if we, even with the formation of a TIF district, I don't think they have to be, I don't think one causes the other to fail or vice versa. So we should be able to advance a TIF district, but with regard to the redevelopment authority, we definitely have to do some restructuring there, make some big decisions on that.
Okay, so the motion you want tonight is?
Yeah, it would be a motion to accept the proposal from the Southwest Regional Planning Commission for TIF planning services in the city of Richland Center.
Okay, and do we have their cost to create each one it looks like $8,000? That's theirs, or is it?
That's their estimated cost, yes. They would, that's how much per district they are giving to the city.
Okay, is there a chance we would have costs beyond that?
There is, the final paragraph does say that it is possible that there could be some costs associated with the creation of legal description, and it's typically excluded from our estimate. However, we may be able to cover it as an eligible expense of the grant. So it's possible that on a per district basis, there could be a couple of thousand, a few $1,000s associated with doing surveying, but we are not sure of that. We'd have to get an estimate. And then the second thing is, like they're saying, they may be able to provide some funds towards those services. So it's a little bit of an unknown, but what we do know for sure is that we're receiving a substantial portion of those processes at no fee, at no cost.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion to accept a proposal from Southwest Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, as their letter states, perform all tasks required for the creation of a TID plan. Cost to create each plan is $8,000. This would then be for no more than 2 potential TID districts?
What they've offered is 2 TIF districts, correct?
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I would make that motion.
Motion for Mr. Jelenic, is there a second?
Second.
Is that Mr. Wilson?
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Okay, discussion?
So question, you had made mention that you had contacted a couple other firms. You have not heard back from them?
Sure, yes, we've had great conversations with Vierbicker Engineering and MSA Engineering in regard to creating TIF districts. They've actually been involved in the city in the past with creating TIF districts. It's just that the grant isn't eligible through those services. Regional planning is highly aware of what goes on in Richland Center with regard to planning and has been assisting other municipalities as part of their service of regional planning. So we feel that we can move through this process, receive an excellent product, and have 0 fee to the city. So this is the way to go.
So they are in the business of creating TID districts in this area? They've done them before?
Yeah, I mean, TIF districts it's a lot of planning, right? That's why
Yeah.
we're excited about having them, because they're looking at our city all the time from a planning element. They're the ones who develop the future land use map. They're the ones that sometimes have advised on zoning questions and issues, and so they're well aware of property and property uses and city planning. And so this is an element of city planning. They've assisted several other municipalities with TIF districts, so we have no doubt that they can provide a good product. The application process is not all that complicated once you move through, from what I'm understanding, once you move through these planning phases, deciding where you want it, deciding where development is most likely to take place. So they're familiar with the applications, and again, perhaps the most complicated element is creating the meets and bounds description for the TIF district that you're creating. And again, we would be reaching out to an engineering firm on that.
And then this would go to the joint review board
Right.
for approval, so
Any TIF would.
any TIF would. So they could create this with us, work with us on this, and then, you know, there could be a different outcome depending on that joint review board. So it's not a guarantee just because we created it is formed, and this process is, it has to be done by September 1st, is that right?
Oh, wow, I don't recall that date, sorry.
That's what you guys have
Yeah.
both told me.
So we don't have to do this tomorrow, but we do have to go through the process, have the legal description, have the boundaries established, go through the joint review board, all of that completed and submitted to the state by, I believe, September 1st in order for it to go into effect.
Cover what you were asking?
So follow up, what, joint review board, tell me what that is again?
Representative of the city, county, the school district, Southwest
Oh,
Town.
that's right.
Those
Yeah.
affected by the TIF.
Yeah,
Right.
because it does impact where property tax dollars go and when.
Okay, just, you know, because I was somewhat involved in going through the whole history
Yeah.
with the RDA, okay? And we definitely found issues where, you know, there's some things that weren't followed through with, weren't completed, I'll just say it that way. So you have said that Southwest Regional Planning is, you know, has assisted other communities in doing this. So were they involved, you know, like with MSA or Bierbecker in providing information? Or, you know, just,
No, they're coming, like, for example, do you remember, was it Schulzberg?
I think that's what it was.
I think Schulzberg, for example, let's take the name out of it. There's another community in our region, Southwest Regional Planning serves the Southwest, that had 6 TIF districts, and they had them all locked up. They were using their margin that is allowed to be used inside of a TIF district, and they were kind of paralyzed. So Southwest Regional Planning goes in, they take all the TIF plans, they read all the TIF plans, and they made suggestions for resetting boundaries. I think that was resetting boundaries, and like in Boscobel, one of the people that they have assisting right now was the Boscobel administrator, Misty. She's familiar with TIF districts, so they have plenty of knowledge. When I say assist, I mean they are walking through the application process. The only element that they need assistance on is from an engineer to establish the meets and bounds description of the district. So there's nothing else that they need assistance with. They're well capable of executing TIF planning and an application for a TIF district.
thank you. Just not familiar with, you know, the work that they're doing, so.
Yeah, no problem, that's why you asked, right?
Yeah.
Anybody else? Questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, we do have the motion in the second, so we'll have a roll call vote.
Tepley,
Aye.
Coppernoll,
Aye.
Miller, Wilson,
Aye.
Jelinek,
Aye.
Cairns.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, next is future agenda items. I'm going to start with a question here because I don't know where we're at on a hotel. I think at some point it'll probably get to us, but I don't know. We were doing a hotel feasibility study. How are we doing?
We are.
How are we doing?
In fact, I just received an email today earlier today that they will be here next Wednesday to just kind of do the quick highlight reel. So myself and Candace will take them on that. And then, I don't know if this is, so we probably should have a couple conversations and just
Yeah.
the procedure
Yeah, exactly.
things. And I had questions about, I don't know if that's the way, she just made mention other communities go through this type of process, and I just want to make sure that's what we want to do. So I'll talk to both of you about that tonight if I can.
So that's a potential future agenda item. That's the only one I had right now. Anybody else?
We will bring another update regarding the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and free consulting services that we're receiving from them for some planning down on the Orange Street corridor. So we'll probably bring that to the next meeting. I don't know if their services will be completed yet, but at least we can review what they've got to date.
Good.
Anything else? Okay, next meeting date then, 4th Wednesday of the month. Do we have the date? I can't see her grabbing her calendar.
25th of October.
25th of October, 5:30 PM. Okay, everyone got that? Okay, next on the agenda is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? All in favor of adjourning this meeting, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.